Hi, JPO here again. Time for another demonstration of how you can hone a razor from start to finish with the simplest setup I can think of. So this is Naniwa, what's it called? Snow White 8K and a 600 grit worn down plate. So now I've knocked off the edge and I'm generating slurry to increase the cutting power of this upper mid-range or fine stone. This makes it cut a lot faster than using it without slurry, and almost acts like a coarser grit stone. As you can see, it with slurry it cuts really fast, but the downside of using slurry is that the slurry is also knocking back the edge a little, and so of course the gold standard of razor honing is going from bevel set to finish, from coarse to fine, and really sneaking up on the edge and do a gradual refinement. But this not everyone gets into razor shaving to hone razors and just want to get it sharp and smooth. So hard to believe, maybe. We go to these internet forums and people ask questions, and then they're just told that shave with a 1K edge, or and come back when you've done that, and then they come back after a few weeks and the razor looks like a toothpick and they wonder what happened. And so the road to failure can also be paved with good intentions, and I'm actually questioning how good these intentions are sometimes. So now this step is quite important, using edge trailing strokes to draw out the edge. This you're actually deliberately overhoning the edge and pulling out. It's not a, we call it a burr, but if you compare it to a knife, this type of burr is so small that as you can see, it's easy to remove the next step. So if you have a 12K stone, you can also do more edge trailing strokes on a 12K stone, and then the burr you create is much easier or slightly easier to remove, and you need to use, or can use, less strokes on the next step, which is the chromium oxide loaded balsa strop. But of course it's a little more difficult to tell when you have removed this so-called burr on the next stage, if you're going from an 8K. But so you just you can actually see on especially on these white stones, that the edge is that it's starting to break off small bits and pieces, which is fragments of small burr. And this edge trailing part is important if you want to follow this procedure to hone a razor. So and it's all visual. You can just rotate the razor under a bright light source, and you see how the edge reflects. It's really easy to see that there's how these, because the burr is reflecting light differently. But of course, if you can't see it, it's just you can it's impossible to do too many strokes here because you're deliberately overhoning. So you could, yeah, if you just did 50 or 100 strokes, then you probably wind up in a good place. So this could be broken down, and you can use a certain amount of number of strokes and all that stuff, and yeah, it's almost impossible to create a bad edge, and your final edge is, or my at least, is almost identical each time. So now you can see the so-called burr. If you pause and zoom in, you can see that the edge is folding over slightly, but this on this scale it's not that significant, and on a 12K stone it's even less. But you can actually see this much easier, like I'm doing now, just by rotating the edge and letting the apex reflect. Yeah, so at this stage you probably need maybe 30 strokes, or after an 8K. So if you did 50, you would probably be almost covered, or you can add some redundancy by doing a little more strokes if you're not experienced enough to tell just by looking at the glint from the edge. So this is removing that small burr and creating some convexity behind the edge. So after this stage, the goal is not to create a shaving edge at this stage. So if you had done this after a 12K, then you can probably reduce the number of strokes from maybe from 50 to 15, or yeah. But if you fail to remove the burr created on the stones at this stage, the next stage will not work, because then you're just the leather, pasted leather, will just extend that burr. So for some reason, when you create some micro convexity and move to a pasted leather strop, you're not able to recreate a new burr, so you're just improving the geometry. Yeah, so just inspecting, and again, I'm doing this all by a visual inspection without any magnification, and there's no need for any type of magnification, but because you can actually see this a lot better with a good light source overhead than you can with a microscope. So because the actual apex is reflecting the edge differently. So now when it's all removed, then you get a bright, even reflection at the apex. But again, you can also just find a method that works, like putting in X amount of strokes, and yeah, and doing a little too much, but it's just the most critical for this type of method. Yeah, so when there's going to be a microscope image soon here, and you can really see that the burr is gone. If you pause and zoom in, you can see that there is some convexity and rounding at the edge. You can see how the light reflects at the apex. So this yeah, so then you're creating some convexity when you use a soft substrate like this. but you're also setting the stage for the final strop. Yeah, so now there's no burrs or anything, but there is left, you have left some convexity behind, which if the bevel angle is too wide already, then that could be an issue. So this method works really well, especially if the edge geometry is good already. So if the bevel angles is around 17 degrees and below, if you have a razor with a bevel angle of 19 degrees, for instance, then this extra convexity might have an impact on the final results. So now I'm using the Harrold's black paste, and I'm applying it and rubbing it into the leather. You don't want a thick coating on the top as a top layer. You want to get it really rubbed in, and you don't need a lot of honing compound to do this. So now the goal is just to reduce the width of the apex and create essentially a sharper edge or a sharper radius behind the apex. And again, here I'm intentionally doing way too many strokes just to demonstrate that the convexity created in the previous step is almost it's almost impossible to recreate a new burr at this stage. But if you had some burr hanging on from the previous step, then this will not remove it. It will just extend it and create a nasty foil edge. So yeah, it's a simple method, but the edge trailing strokes and burr removal on a soft substrate like the balsa is a crucial step. Yeah, and there's a myth about when you're doing it like this, you break off the burr and you create an uneven, nasty burr or an edge that is not comfortable. It's just nonsense. But even still, it's repeated over and over again. So, and even if you show content like this and explain your process and every step, then people will still claim that there's that this is going on. It's like and again, it's you can do 100 strokes, or you probably just need to do 20 or 30 strokes, depending on how well you did on the previous step. But yeah, so from the microscope image, you can see that this is, if you pause and zoom in, you can see that this the apex radius now is smaller, and this is more or less what you get from a higher grit 30K stone with a little extra convexity. But after a few shaves you will end up with some convexity anyway. So and these are really comfortable. I just shaved with this razor, and I don't think I could. I shaved it side by side with a J-nut edge, and although the J-nut edge was slightly more to my liking, this was quite close, and for someone just getting started, this will probably not even notice a difference between these two edges. So yeah, so there you have it. Thank you for watching.